Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder how your brain decides what memories to grab onto and what to let go of? Especially when you are trying to remember something specific from long ago. Well, this new study dives deep into exactly that, exploring how our attention helps us pick out the right bits of information from our vast stores of long-term memories. Imagine your long-term memory like a giant library absolutely packed with books about everything you've ever experienced. When you need to find one specific piece of information, say what color shirt your friend wore at a party last year, your brain has to navigate through countless other memories. How does it zoom in on just the right memory? That is what this research aimed to figure out. The scientists here were really curious about how selective attention works when we're trying to pull information out of our long-term memory. They know attention is super important for memory, but they weren't quite sure how it specifically picks and chooses what to focus on from old memories. So they came up with a clever new way to test this, borrowing ideas from studies about attention in short-term memory, which is what we call working memory. They explain that attention can be either external, focusing on things we're seeing or hearing right now, or internal, focusing on things we're thinking about or remembering. While we've learned a lot about how attention works with information we're actively holding in our minds, like a phone number we're about to dial, we know a lot less about how it guides us through our long-term memories. Think about trying to recall a specific conversation from years ago. It is not just there, you have to actively search and focus. So how did they test this? They ran 3 experiments with quite a few participants, over 200 in total. First, they had people study associations between scenes and 2 specific objects that were in those scenes. They had to remember not just what the objects were, but also where they were located in each scene. After this learning phase, they moved on to the main part, the selective retrieval task. In this task, participants would see one of the scenes they had studied. Then, here is the clever part, they got a cue. This cue was either informative, meaning it gave them a hint about which object from that scene was going to be tested, or it was neutral, offering no useful information. Think of it like this: if you are looking for a specific book in that giant library. An informative cue might be a sign pointing towards the fiction section, while a neutral cue would be just a blank sign. After the cue, they were shown 2 objects and had to pick the one that belonged to the scene they'd just seen. The critical thing was whether the cue actually helped them pick the right object. They used spatial cues, meaning the cues told them which side of the scene the object was on. Sometimes the cue was right, sometimes it was wrong, and sometimes it gave no information at all. In their first experiment, called Experiment 1A, they tested if these cues helped people recognize objects that had been in the scene versus objects they had never seen before. What they found was super interesting. While people were really good at recognizing objects overall, meaning their accuracy was almost perfect, their response times changed a lot depending on the cue. When the cue was correct, telling them which object to look for, they were faster. But when the cue was wrong, or even just neutral, they were slower. This tells us that even if you are pretty sure you know the answer, paying attention to the right hint makes you quicker. They call these faster times benefits and the slower times costs. Next, in Experiment 1B, they made things a little harder. Instead of just showing a new object, the choices were between 2 objects that had both been in the learning phase, but only one of them belonged to the specific scene being tested. This required a deeper level of recall, not just familiarity. And here, the cues started to make a bigger difference in accuracy as well as speed. When the cue was correct, people were more accurate in picking the right object for the scene. And they were also faster. When the cue was wrong, they were less accurate and slower. This highlights how helpful targeted attention can be when trying to recall specific associations. Then, in Experiment 2, they played with the timing of the cues. They wondered if attention could help even before the scene was fully presented, or if it needed some time to kick in after the scene appeared. They found that even when the cues appeared right at the beginning, before the scene was shown, and even when the time to retrieve the memory was very short, the helpful effects of the cues remained. This is a really big deal. It suggests that our brain might be able to prepare and direct attention to potential memories very early on, even before the full context is available. It's like the brain getting a heads up to look in a specific aisle of the library before the librarian even tells you which book you need. The benefits were still there whether people had a long time or a very short time to retrieve the memory. So, what does all this mean? The researchers conclude that selective attention is deeply involved in pulling information from long-term memory. Their new experimental method, borrowing from working memory studies, seems to be a reliable way to test how attention shapes. What we remember, they emphasize that attention isn't just a separate process. It is an integral part of how we successfully retrieve specific memories. especially when there are many similar memories competing for our attention. The core takeaway is that directing attention can make memory retrieval faster, and in more demanding tasks, more accurate. This happened whether the cues came before or during memory retrieval, and it worked even when the time pressure was high. It really solidifies the idea that our attention acts like a spotlight, helping us focus on the parts of our past that are most relevant at any given moment. They suggest that attention might even start working very early in the retrieval process, perhaps even before the memory is fully brought into our active working memory. This flexible approach allows our brain to be ready to recall information efficiently. It's not just about what is stored, but how well we can access it, and attention plays a crucial role in that access. The beauty of this research is that it opens up so many new questions. For example, they believe we could explore attention guided by other types of hints, not just location, but maybe object features or even emotional associations. They also want to see how the strength or age of a memory might interact with attention. Now, no study is perfect, and it is important to be critical. One limitation here is that they only looked at behavioral data accuracy and speed. This doesn't fully explain how the brain is doing this. To really understand the underlying mechanisms, they'd need to use brain imaging techniques like EEG or fMRI. Also, their tasks focused on retrieving specific items from scenes. And while that is a great start, they didn't investigate whether attention can improve the quality of the recalled memory itself, or how precise the spatial attention can be. But overall, this study provides a fantastic new tool for understanding the intricate relationship between memory and attention. It strongly supports the idea that attention is not just a passive observer but an active participant in shaping our recall from long-term memory. It's a reminder that the ability to remember is not just about what we've stored, but how effectively our attention can guide us through our internal world. What do you guys think? Does this resonate with your own experiences of trying to remember things? Let us know in the comments below, and if you found this breakdown helpful, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more science explained simply, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next dive into the fascinating world of the human mind. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.